Montecito, the seaside Santa Barbara County enclave that is famously home to a slew of Hollywood heavyweights.
He's very lovable. He's easy to love.
He's been through extraordinary things. He's come out the other side. I admire some rebellious.
The Montecito mansion, once the perfect symbol of California luxury and quiet prestige, has transformed into something far more intense. No longer just a home, it has become a pressure cooker where even the walls seem to hold whispers of the turmoil inside. Behind the immaculate gates and perfectly manicured lawns, the Sussex saga has reached a critical breaking point. Now, sources close to the household staff, those who have witnessed Harry and Meghan at their most unguarded, are stepping forward. And what they're revealing is nothing short of explosive.
News were about forwarding Meghan. That's what it's about. And about...
It began subtly, almost unnoticed. A staff once loyal, but exhausted by the constant tension, let a few quiet hints slip to a trusted media contact. Then more stories surfaced, small whispers at first, about private arguments, emotional spirals, and the relentless pressure coming from Meghan's inner circle. At the beginning, few took the rumors seriously. Celebrity gossip is easy to dismiss. But as additional staffers stepped forward, the picture sharpened, a household stretched to its limit, where emotions ran high, nerves frayed, and loyalties were tested daily. According to these insiders, Harry and Meghan found themselves in tears more than once, overwhelmed by everything from media scrutiny to disputes about security, privacy, and even basic household management. The mansion, once a sanctuary, had become a battleground of emotional warfare. Staff, they say, walked on eggshells, never knowing which argument, breakdown, or crisis they might encounter next. And while the royal couple fought to present a calm, controlled public image, the reality behind closed doors was strikingly, painfully different.
Harry sharing painful and deeply personal details of the family rift that rocked the British royal family and the world.
There's a lot that I can forgive.
One staff member, speaking strictly under the condition of anonymity, recalled an evening that has now become symbolic of the Sussex household unraveling. I walked past the sitting room, they said, and I could hear Meghan and Harry arguing. Harry was trying to explain something about an upcoming interview, but halfway through, Meghan just collapsed emotionally. She was crying, pacing, shouting, sometimes at Harry, sometimes at no one at all. Harry tried to comfort her, but he looked completely defeated. It was heartbreaking. Two people completely undone by the pressure they were living under. According to staff, scenes like this were far from rare. Meghan frequently demanded last-minute changes to schedules, security protocols, and even meal plans, sending waves of chaos through the home. Harry, caught between Meghan's urgent expectations and the logistical realities of managing a large estate, found himself trapped in constant tension. One butler described the feeling. It was like living inside a storm. You never knew when it would hit, but when it did, it swallowed everything. There were tears, shouting, and then these long stretches of silence that were somehow even worse. No one knew how to move, how to speak, or what would set things off.
At the end of the day, I'm really just proud of who I am and where I come from.
But the revelations didn't end with emotional blow-ups. Staff members described a pattern of behavior that revealed a far more complicated dynamic behind the mansion's closed doors. Multiple insiders claimed Meghan maintained tight control, not only over Harry, but over every element of the household. Who could enter the property, how staff were expected to dress, even small details of daily routine, nothing escaped her attention. Some staff felt as if they were constantly being observed, their every action judged against a standard that shifted from day to day. One longtime employee put it plainly, there was an unmistakable hierarchy and Meghan was always at the top. Even a small mistake could turn into a long lecture. It wasn't just about running a home, it was about preserving an image. Everything had to appear flawless. And the emotional exhaustion that created was enormous. Meanwhile, Harry, desperate to protect his family, was reportedly wrestling with the emotional cost of the conflicts. Sources described moments where he looked exhausted, drained, and torn between two worlds. He truly loves her, one insider said, but he's conflicted. He wants to keep her happy, but he can also see how much stress her expectations put on everyone else. He's stuck in the middle, and you can see it wearing on him.
Prove that you're enough. You have to prove that you're pretty enough. You have to prove that you're smart enough. You prove that you're a good wife or a good friend. And I was like, I am just so done with the prove it game.
The breaking point, staff say, arrived during one particularly tense weekend. A major dinner party had been scheduled, an elaborate gathering of Hollywood insiders, philanthropic powerhouses, and high-profile friends. What should have been a glamorous evening quickly spiraled into chaos. According to multiple sources, Meghan became irate over the smallest details. The flower arrangements, the lighting setup, even the selected wine. Harry tried to soothe her, but tensions only intensified. Staff recall the argument escalating until both Meghan and Harry were in tears, leaving the household scrambling to hold the event together. The dinner carried on, at least on the surface, but the emotional aftershocks lingered long after the guests had gone home. Insiders also described a culture of secrecy and strict information control behind the scenes. Meghan, they claim, kept a tight grip on what could be shared publicly and what even staff were allowed to know. Employees were reportedly forbidden from discussing certain incidents, and any hint of a leak triggered immediate suspicion and investigation. One former staffer likened it to living in a fishbowl where loyalty was everything and privacy barely existed. Yet amid the tension, the staff occasionally witnessed moments of genuine softness between Harry and Meghan. Away from the cameras and the pressure, they would sometimes comfort each other, fleeting reminders of the bond that once defined their relationship. They really do love each other, one insider said. But the weight they're carrying, both from the outside world and from inside their own home, is crushing. The tears and arguments are symptoms of a relationship constantly under strain. Beyond the emotional upheaval, staff also provided a glimpse into the couple's demanding daily routines. Their schedule, they said, was meticulously structured, leaving almost no room for rest or spontaneity. Meghan, in particular, reportedly oversaw everything, from meals and fitness sessions to media appearances and philanthropic plans. Employees described a relentless pace, where every day felt like a race against an ever-growing list of expectations. Security, too, became a constant source of strain. According to sources, Meghan and Harry operated under multiple layers of personal protection, creating complex logistical challenges that only deepened the tension inside the household. It wasn't just about keeping people out, one staffer explained. It was about coordinating schedules, syncing with staff, and making sure every movement was secure. It was exhausting for everyone involved. But perhaps the most striking revelations were those about Harry's emotional burden. Staff portrayed him as deeply empathetic, someone who felt everything intensely, but increasingly worn down by the impossible balance he was trying to maintain. He's being pulled in every direction, one insider said. He wants to support Meghan, but he can also see what the pressure is doing to the staff, to himself, and to their public image. The tears weren't about a single fight. They were the result of years of pressure, expectation, and constant scrutiny. As these accounts began to circulate, the media storm around the Montecito mansion erupted. Paparazzi, royal commentators, and online critics latched onto every leaked detail, some framing the couple's tears as evidence of overwhelming pressure, others spinning it into speculation about private instability. Social media amplified everything, creating a relentless feedback loop that only intensified the emotional weight pressing down on the couple. Yet the staff who spoke out insisted their goal was not to attack Meghan and Harry. Instead, they wanted to offer a rare glimpse into the human reality behind one of the world's most scrutinized households. People see the glamour, one staffer said, but they don't see the exhaustion, the tension, the tears. We wanted to show that behind the headlines and rumors, there's real emotion here, and it affects everyone in the house.
Harry and Meghan. Sources confirm now that Meghan's mother Doria has returned to the U.S., the Sussexes have hired a nanny.
And now, with these revelations spilling into the open, the Montecito mansion stands exposed. Its carefully guarded secrets suddenly cast beneath a glaring public spotlight. The tears, the arguments, the relentless pressure, Together they paint a portrait of a household trapped between celebrity, royalty, and something far more fragile: the simple human need for connection and understanding. For Meghan and Harry, the question now is whether they can navigate the fallout and emerge whole, or whether the strain will continue to rise, leaving both the couple and their staff to face the consequences of a life lived under unyielding scrutiny. The fallout from the Montecito revelations was immediate and seismic. Within hours of the staff accounts hitting the media, social platforms erupted. Hashtags like #SussexT and #Montecito surged worldwide. Royal commentators dissected every leaked detail, while online sleuths combed through old interviews, Instagram posts, and paparazzi photos searching for clues, the subtle signs of the tension staff had described. Inside the mansion, sources say the couple was blindsided. Staff reported a frenzy of emergency meetings, whispered conversations, and frantic phone calls as Meghan and Harry scrambled to assess the damage and prepare a response. Meghan, insiders say, was particularly devastated. She was crying, pacing on calls for hours, noted one former staff member. It was as if she felt the house itself had turned against her. Harry, too, was shaken, though in a quieter, more internal way. Sources described him as tense and withdrawn, trying desperately to shield Meghan from the worst of the storm while privately battling his own rising emotions. One insider put it simply: he looked exhausted. The kind of tired that comes from trying to protect someone you love when you know there's very little you can actually do to stop what's coming. The media reaction was swift and merciless. Major outlets plastered headlines across homepages, some sympathetic, like "Pressure behind the gates, Sussex tears revealed." Others were far more cutting: "Royal meltdown in California, staff spill secrets." Opinion writers debated the credibility of the staff accounts, while late-night hosts and YouTube commentators transformed the mansion drama into binge-worthy content. Behind the scenes, Meghan's PR machine roared to life. Crisis strategists were summoned to draft statements, manage leaks, and attempt to regain control of the narrative. Staff accounts were quickly labeled misleading, distorted, or taken out of context. But insiders insisted the couple was fighting a losing battle. Every time they tried to control the story, it grew bigger, said one media consultant familiar with the Sussex team. It was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a teacup.
Organisations pointing out there have been quite a lot of inconsistencies in what Harry and Meghan have been saying over recent weeks and months, and the bike ride is one example of.
Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace observed the chaos from a distance, silent but far from disengaged. Insiders suggest that although the institution adopted a hands-off stance after the Sussexes moved to California, the overwhelming media storm triggered a series of quiet, internal inquiries. The palace doesn't need to respond publicly, one source explained. They watch, they take notes, and when necessary, they move behind the scenes. This isn't about punishment, it's about optics, especially when the royal brand is involved. Back in Montecito, friction was intensifying. Staff described tense, private confrontations as Meghan reportedly voiced deep frustration over perceived betrayals and leaks, while Harry desperately tried to mediate. There was a real sense of desperation, a former housekeeper said. Meghan wanted control. Harry wanted peace. And neither could get what they needed. The tension hung in the air. It was suffocating. The earlier revelations, emotional breakdowns, arguments, meticulous control over daily routines, took on new significance when paired with recent public missteps. Observers began pointing to interviews, social media posts, and public appearances that didn't align with the polished image the couple worked so hard to present. Every tear described by staff was magnified through celebrity scrutiny. Every moment of exhaustion became fuel for speculation about their stability, their marriage, and their future. And as the media frenzy escalated, the psychological toll on staff grew heavier. Longtime employees, once loyal, discreet, and protective, began reconsidering their positions. People were scared of being painted as villains or traitors, one insider said. But the stress was unbearable. Sharing what they'd seen felt like the only way to explain the chaos and protect themselves. Living in that environment every day takes a real toll. In many ways, the Montecito mansion evolved into both a symbol and a stage for a much larger cultural debate. Analysts questioned whether the Sussexes' struggles stemmed from the impossible blend of celebrity and royalty, the crushing weight of global scrutiny, or something deeper within their own personalities. In the court of public opinion, every leaked detail became evidence, fuel for a sprawling narrative about privilege, pressure, and private pain in a hypervisible world. Yet amid the turmoil, some staff recalled moments of genuine tenderness. They described Harry comforting Meghan after particularly bruising interactions with media or guests, holding her hand, whispering reassurance, trying to create pockets of calm in a life spinning out of control. They really do love each other, one insider insisted. But even love has limits under this kind of pressure. The tears weren't just about arguments. They were about the weight of everything: fame, media, history, expectations.
So fortunate, and we're all here to support each other, which is icing on the cake.
Meghan Markle feeling all the support from her kids, visiting her on set of her Netflix lifestyle series, With Love, Meghan.
Meghan Markle reportedly felt a surge of support as her children visited her on the set of her Netflix lifestyle series, With Love, Meghan. Yet, behind the scenes, some Montecito staff began hinting at their experiences through social media posts and anonymous interviews, sparking a secondary wave of commentary. Clips of mansion tours, cryptic Instagram stories, and subtle online cues were quickly interpreted as corroboration of the initial leaks. The Sussexes' carefully controlled world, meticulously curated for years, was suddenly fractured. Every staff account became a window into the private life of a couple once thought untouchable. The security element, meanwhile, intensified the pressure. Sources indicate that heightened scrutiny over leaks led Meghan and Harry to enforce stricter security protocols. Staff underwent briefings, had communications monitored, and adjusted to new rules designed to prevent further disclosures. Ironically, one staffer remarked, "The more they tried to prevent leaks, the tenser everyone became, and the more likely leaks were to happen." Amidst this turmoil, the Sussexes' social media presence became a battleground of perception versus reality. Carefully curated posts featuring family moments, philanthropic endeavors, and lifestyle highlights often clashed with staff narratives of emotional volatility. Analysts noted a stark contrast between online personas and behind-the-scenes accounts, raising questions about authenticity, mental health, and the pressures of maintaining a global image. Insiders also noted a pattern of preemptive control. Meghan, according to multiple staffers, frequently attempted to anticipate negative narratives, adjusting public appearances, personal routines, and media engagement to prevent leaks or unwanted headlines. Harry, while supportive, reportedly struggled with this level of micromanagement, occasionally pushing back in private moments, creating flashpoints that staffers could not help but observe. By this stage, the story had reached a tipping point. Media outlets, royal commentators, and social platforms were no longer merely reporting leaks. They were analyzing them as part of a broader saga. Every detail, from tears to whispered staff observations, became symbolic, a lens through which to examine celebrity pressure, the fusion of royalty and Hollywood, and the vulnerabilities of two of the world's most scrutinized figures. And yet, despite the chaos, fascination remained undeniable. Audiences were captivated not only by the drama, but by the humanity glimpsed through the cracks. The Sussexes' tears, arguments, and meticulous control over their lives served as both cautionary tale and spectacle, a reminder that even those at the pinnacle of fame and fortune are not immune to emotional breakdowns, relational stress, and the crushing weight of public expectation. That as the dust began to settle, the Montecito mansion itself became almost mythic in public discourse, a palace of luxury, secrecy, and emotional turbulence. For Meghan and Harry, the challenge was clear: navigate the fallout, reclaim some semblance of private life, and reconcile the world outside with the world inside, where staff whispers and private tears had irrevocably altered the narrative. Yet even as they sought control, the story was far from over. New leaks, fresh accounts, and ongoing analyses continued to emerge, ensuring that the Montecito mansion and the emotional lives of its most famous residents would remain a focal point of global intrigue for months, if not years, to come.